Over the years of running a business in the digital space, I've come to a realization that in order to successfully grow your business into a multi-million-dollar company, you have to make sure that your business model is scalable. A digital marketing agency is not just an exception. Let's just say you're a one-man show, you've been running a digital marketing agency all by yourself. You've been fulfilling every single client from start to finish, from the initial phone call to the point where the marketing campaign goes live. You would come to a point of burnout and probably want to run yourself through a glass window, but you can't afford to do that because who else is going to fulfill your clients? Don't worry, because I myself have been in your shoes. So what I'm going to be sharing with you right now are my top 5 practical steps that you can implement in your company right away to build yourself a scalable digital marketing agency to the size that you completely desire. And we're going to help you do this effectively and efficiently as possible by automating the entire agency so that you can spend time doing the things that you truly want to do. Step 1, understanding your strengths and weaknesses. The biggest differentiator when any business gets started is most people get started because they understand that they have a skill set that they want to build a business in. One of the early on books that I read was a book by the name of E-Myth by Michael Gerber. In that book, he talks about what most people do is they start working in their business and then will eventually get to a point where they do not ever work on their business. Now, the reason being is because they realize that they have a skill set that they cannot duplicate. That is exactly what I'm about to talk about. When you get started into the digital marketing space, you have multiple strengths that you could lean on. One could be sales, the other could be digital marketing, whether it's social media advertising, whether it's just posting on social media, whether it's writing copy or building funnels. One of the things that I did early on was when I was a one-man show from selling to closing to fulfilling the deal is I realized that I truly enjoyed the sales process more than I did the delivery. But I understood the concepts of building out a digital marketing agency, and that is what we eventually did. Step number 2, start focusing on your strengths and start delegating your weaknesses. Now, there's multiple ways that we can get around doing this. From 1 is partners, 2 is VAs, 3 is building an internal team, 4 is just completely outsourcing to people that have actual built white label services. Now, when you first start looking at what you want to do, the one thing that I would probably suggest you do that did phenomenally well for me is sit down on a piece of paper and write down the middle. My strengths, my weaknesses, okay? Because you're gonna start seeing all the strengths that you're gonna have and you're gonna start seeing all the weaknesses you're gonna have. Once you start doing that, you're gonna start figuring out who you can delegate to immediately. The quickest way to build a scalable business is through delegation, to have someone else do the things that you truly do not wanna do. Now, step number 3, start and focus on building a team. When I first got started in my digital marketing agency, I was a one-man show, like I said at the beginning of the video. From that point in time, I did the exact same thing. I did the drawbacks and benefits and what my weaknesses were and what my strengths were on a piece of paper. So at that point in time, I started to search for media buyers that I could hire and eventually got to a point where I just partnered with someone. I brought someone on that had a really good skill set and I said, hey, here's 50% of the company. Let's go build this thing and kind of scale it. Once we did that, it was a two-man show. So it went from me and my business partner, Matt, at the time. Then I was selling all the deals, onboarding the clients. Matt was taking them, fulfilling them, and communicating. Eventually, it got to a point where we started building a team on the media buying side, on the operations side, and we started to focus on things internally. Throughout the entire process, we also started to do things externally by using things like virtual assistants. Now, both of them have got drawbacks, and both of them have got benefits. Internally, obviously, you're going to pay a lot more because you've got to be paying, whatever city or country that you're living in, your salaries, employee benefits, etc. But when you go internationally, the drawbacks, some of the advantages are costs are cheaper, but the drawbacks to that come into the perspective of you don't know what they're actually doing. You can use tools like Time Doctor to help track that. Some of the traits that I usually look for when hiring, whether it's, even if it's internal or external VAs, is I want to be able to have someone that can be what I call full stack. Now, a lot of times if we hire someone that's a media buyer or an account manager, I want them to be able to understand that if hit the fan, let's just say that they could literally go and help somebody else in another part of the company and understand how to be a positive impact to that role. A lot of the times, most people, when you hire internally in a team, they just hire for one role and one role only. Now, granted, there are certain things that you can have them there for. However, for any crucial, specific building, company-related roles that are going to make a big difference in your bottom line revenue, make sure you're hiring someone that is a full stack person, someone that can understand whether it's communicating with clients, whether it's media buying, whether it's account managing, or they can do one of 3 minimum required things in your day-to-day company. Now, once we got to a point where we built a pretty solid, sustainable in-house team, because we knew that we wanted to build an in-house agency, we eventually started to figure out using systems and processes that would help scale the team, which is going to be step number 4, establish yourself a quality workflow. Now that just doesn't mean for yourself, it also means for your team. Now, if you remember in step 2 and step 3, we talked about delegation and building a team. In step number 4, when you have a workflow that you can sustain from the time a client is onboarded or even from the time a client is sold or a lead comes into your company all the way to the time where you're fulfilling the lead. There's multiple things that you can do. Number 1 that I suggest is focus on specifically if you're building a digital marketing agency, is focus on communication internally and externally. So internally with your team, making sure that you understand where every single person within your team is. Externally, understanding somebody that can communicate, whether it's yourself or an account manager, an assistant that can communicate with your clients, giving them updates on where the campaign is. It doesn't matter if it's live, it doesn't matter if you've just got started. Just remember one thing, when someone hires you for something, is because they're relying on you for your expertise. All they want a lot of the times is open and honest communication. If you screw up, communicate. That is part of your workflow. There's tools that you can use inside of your company on a day-to-day basis, from project management systems like Asana, Notion, Trello, etc. A lot of these are free, some of them are paid. Do a little bit of research on what you like to do. Internally in our company, we use Asana and Notion, and as well for communication, we use tools like Slack. Outside of that, once we start working into a workflow environment, we make sure that our team every single morning, Monday to Friday, does a 10 to 30 minute stand-up call where all we do is we jump on a phone call, on a Zoom call with the entire team. When you get to a point whether it's 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, or 30 people from different parts of the world, is jump on and answer 4 simple things. What did you work on yesterday? What are you working on today? What are the things that are currently blocking you? And what are the issues or fires that you could see coming up in your company? Doing that every single day will help your team, help you stay accountable to what you need to focus on and how to stay accountable on your day-to-day, daily priorities and day-to-day tasks. Step number 5, optimize your systems. Now we've gone through the entire top 4 things that I would suggest you implement immediately. Once you get to a point where you've got a big enough team, or even if it's a one-man show and you're building a system using things like I mentioned earlier, like Asana or Notion, is get to a point where you're continually optimizing your systems. You're gonna start to notice, especially once you start to duplicate yourself, is that things just break. And every single time things break, don't look at it as a bad thing, just look at it as how can we fix this problem and go back and optimize that situation. Every single time you do that and you continually optimize your business model, whether it's from a sales perspective, whether it's from a delivery perspective, whether it's from an internal perspective, incremental changes over time make a compounded effect that your business will literally scale just from the little optimizations of your business. Now, most people think of this as a very meta and very broad kind of things, like, oh, it's good, it's easy for you to say because you run a pretty big company. I can almost guarantee you, if you saw my business even 4 years ago, nothing was optimized. So what I'm about to share, what I'm sharing with you, is something that we had to learn a very, very hard way. If you optimize when you're a one-man show, it's a lot easier to optimize when you're a 10-man team. And I can guarantee you that one tip right there will transform your entire business. Now, to summarize this entire video, these 5 steps that I just broke down for you is exactly what we use in our agency every single day. So to completely give you every single one of those steps again, number 1, understand your strengths and weaknesses. Sit down, figure out what you're really good at, what you do not like doing, and figure out a way to, number 2, look at your strengths and what you want to compound on and start delegating it. So start focusing on that, because that's exactly how you start compounding your business. Step number 3 is focus on building a team, whether, like I said earlier, from partners to VAs to outsourcing to internal team. Look at which way you want to go about it. Figure out what your true values are and why you're building this company, and focus towards that. Step number 4, establish an effective and efficient workflow using tools like I mentioned earlier, Asana, Notion, Slack, Trello, whatever you want to use, stay consistent with it. And last but not least, step number 5, which is optimizing your systems. If you follow those 5 steps all the way through and optimize your business every step of the way, I can guarantee you 12 months from now, you won't recognize the company that you just built. So hopefully you guys got a ton of value out of this video. Looking forward to sharing more content with you guys in regarding to building businesses in the digital space in today's day and age in an ever-changing environment. Now, if you got a lot of value, do me a favor for the YouTube algorithm, hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment on what was the biggest thing that you're going to implement from these 5 steps that I just shared with you today. And also, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I look forward to seeing you in the next video.